Hello, gamers from around the world. This is Boxenberger, the video game enthusiast from Germany, and I would like to welcome you to today's very, very special episode of the world of gaming. And I say very special because we have a super special guest here today. We have Joe here. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you. Long time no see.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah, man, it's awesome to have you on the show, and I'm gonna give you a proper introduction in a second. But first, I also want to say a great hello to my good friend Wandering Dutch. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I'm doing well. Of course, work, home, and then on the show. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what additional questions you've got for Joe as well today, and we'll dive into that.
Yeah, we're gonna dive into that. And I said it yesterday on your show, dude. We need to better conversations up front with our guests. But no, Joe, it's awesome to have you here on this show. I think, of course, we have certain overlay in the community, but we have also a lot of people here that might be on Dutch's show and not on my show, vice versa. So we're gonna have a great conversation here with you today. And guys, we're gonna have that for approximately 45 minutes to an hour. After that, Joe has to drop out, and then we are gonna have the regular podcast with some awesome topics. Just today, a couple of hours ago, a big statement from Satya and Nadella went online about where he fired a couple of shots against Sony on the Activision Blizzard acquisition. Then we talk about the Splinter Cell remake news. We're going to talk about the big GTA leaks, the 4080 series, the RTX cards have been revealed. We talk about DRM management, the new handheld from Logitech, and a lot more. But first, we're going to introduce this guy right here properly. Joe, whenever we have someone for the first time on the show, and you are for the first time on this show, we have met on other shows multiple times, but on this show, it's a first. So we always introduce our guests with a couple of questions just to get to know you a little bit better before we talk about your game, Song of Iron 2. Recently was announced, and we're going to have a deep dive there. But first, I want to introduce you. And you as the gamer, the developer. So I always want to know from our guests when they're on here for the first time, where did gaming start for you? Where did you start? What system did you start with, and what kind of games did you play?
Yeah, oh man, I go all the way back to some of the early Atari stuff. I think it's probably the first stuff I played, Pitfall and War. When you name a game so simply, I remember that one fondly still. But I think really, I mean, that was always like, my cousin had one or something, and we would play once in a while over there. My first one that like kind of really latched me into it, I think, would have been Mega Man X. We finally got an S, and Mega Man X came. And it was one of those, like, I was finally capable of truly being good at a game and like understanding it and playing it all the way through, all that kind of stuff. And I still love that game to this day. I think it hit everything so well. And yeah, that was definitely the one that kind of brought me into the gaming space. Still super young. I don't remember when that came out, but and then from then it's been all the classics that everybody loves. The early Zeldas I just played forever, endlessly, and all that kind of stuff. And was a Nintendo person for a while. Kind of became an Xbox with Halo and college, and just the classic party. 15 TVs in a living room, kind of stuff, and just just fell in love with that stuff. And
and look at that! And then you worked on Halo.
Yeah, and then I went.
Isn't that awesome?
And,
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Great. So you've been so basically almost all your life a gamer.
Mm-hmm.
So what were kind of some highlight games that you would name as your favorite games of all time?
Man, yeah, that's a tough one. I think Ocarina of Time, I think is like an undefeatable classic.
Yeah, that's on my list too.
It's been forever since I played it, but I knew every pixel of that game. I could go anywhere. I knew everything about it. I just loved it. Shadow of the Colossus is one that I always think about. Oh. I think there's so much amazing stuff in that game, both gameplay and storytelling and atmosphere, and just everything about that game is just so cool. And it really, like, it like breathed into me like these experiences that you want games to be a lot more than you actually get. Like the flying Colossus, you remember, you're like riding the horse alongside it. It's like a train heist thing. And like you never get to do that really in other games at the time. And
it was just
like,
such an epic set piece that you just didn't have in other games.
And then also they gave you like these down times where you're just riding. There's not like just enemies everywhere in the fields. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's just like the atmosphere of that game is just incredible. Spent a lot of time in like Star Wars Galaxies early on. Ooh. That one like always stands out to me. Like not the best game, but as far as just like existing in the Star Wars world, it was like a pretty awesome thing for its time.
Yeah.
And because of that, I never played WoW because they kind of came out together, and I went to the Star Wars path.
Same here. I played WoW like for 1 month or so. I had a 1 month subscription, and then I played Star Wars. So
it was just so great. I love it. Yeah, and just stuff like that. I mean, anything in that kind of realm. DayZ is a big one for me. That also kind of like is exactly what I want in a game in a weird way. But I played too many hours of that.
Never played DayZ. I have to admit that.
It's hard now. I mean, they when they left the mod and tried to make the standalone, they did not understand why it was good. I think they just destroyed it, and it's just not good anymore. It's sad, but yeah, it is what it is.
Blizzard is apparently working on a DayZ-like game, so who knows what that will be. Yeah.
One day I'll make one. It's on my list of things.
There you go. We'll there you go. You just make one of your own, and it's going to be awesome. I have no doubt. So how did you get into game development?
I was terrible in school, and I could draw kind of a little bit. And so I went to college for game art and design because it was sort of the most obvious path for me just to do more art stuff. And it wasn't the best school, but I got lucky and I found a few people who were good, and we were kind of like friendly competitive with each other. So we kind of both be working on some animation and hope the teacher thought ours was better than the other guys. And it was a very like healthy competition, and it kind of just drove us to push ourselves and be better than the school sort of would do otherwise for us. And it taught us a ton. And leaving that, I got lucky and got a job on Big Buck Hunter at the studio that did the arcade game Big Buck Hunter. It was a very perfect first job. It was like 10 people were there and just animating deer running all the time. And it just sort of got me in the door, and I won some competition leaving the college, and then that got my attention to someone else, and then eventually they reached out and pulled me into Cryptic Studios, which brought me to California, and then it was all just downhill from there, kind of, or uphill, depending on on the phrase, I guess.
I would say uphill. Uphill. Yeah. Good stuff here. All right, guys. We are gonna have ask Joe a lot about Song of Iron and some of the things that led to the first one, and of course now what we can expect from the second one. Two things first, though. I want to say a big thank you to our generous friend, Drawn TJ, who sends in the first super chat of the day. He says, hi, guys. Hi to you, and welcome to everyone in chat. Guys, if you have questions for Joe, drop them in the chat. We see if we can just roll them in here. You guys know the World of Gaming is a podcast from and with the community. So drop your questions and let's see if Joe can answer them. And the second thing is, if you want to learn more about Song of Iron and everything that Joe does, I have all the links in the description down below. I highly recommend two things. First, go on Steam and wishlist the game. The second one is sign up for the newsletter. You're not gonna get spammed. I can vouch for that. It's true. You're not gonna get spammed, but you will get a code for the demo of Song of Iron 2. Joe already put out a demo. I played it yesterday, and it is fantastic. I recorded my playthrough, and I'm just gonna let that run here in parallel. Hang on, and of course I screwed up the overlays again. There we go. I will never learn Dutch. I will never learn. So I'm just gonna let that run here in parallel. That's my playthrough of the Song of Iron 2 demo, which I really enjoyed. So highly recommend to sign up for the newsletter. The link is in the description of the show at songofiron.com. You can definitely sign up there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let us start with the community question here. Comes in from Drawn TJ. Thank you so much for the $5. He says, Joe, how do I start making a game? What do you recommend? Let's start with that.
The biggest question. Yeah. No, it's man, the simple advice is to just start. I mean, I think Unreal is amazing. That's where I started. They give you these templates that, a side scrolling or a first person shooter template. And all you got to do is jump in, start with the template, and start changing it to be, more like what you want to make. Along the way, there's so much to learn in doing it, and starting with small little goals. How does a bullet work, and start Googling that and figuring it out, and that'll teach you the engine, which is the tool you need the most. And then from there, you just start creating whatever you have in your mind, and go from there.
Yeah, good stuff. We've been talking in the green room a little bit how far these tools actually have come. I asked Joe how was the process of implementing like DLSS, which is now available in Song 2, and yeah, basically he said it's more or less turning it on. There's a plugin for it, and I was like, when I look at these engines, and I always download them and play around a little bit for myself. I also downloaded Unreal 5 just to goof around a little bit. It's amazing how far these tools have come.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, I mean, DLS, I literally just dropped it in a folder and rebuilt it, and it was ready. So
it's cool.
Make it easy.
Yeah, great question though, Drawn TJ. Yeah. Great question.
Joe, I could give hours of talk about it, really. So it's hard to.
We make a special episode. How to make a game with Joe. Good stuff. Joe, you launched the first game, and I want to start there. How was the experience? I mean, it was your first solo published game. You published on Steam, on Xbox consoles. So how was the experience, and what were some lessons that you've learned from that?
Yeah, it was very eye-opening. I think making a game and launching a game are two completely different things. And the part of the power of the tools is to stand something up really quickly and show something in a few months that looks like a full game. It definitely gets harder when you're trying to get to the end and finish, and then you have to put all the settings in and all these things and get it onto the platforms, and that stuff is where it gets much more difficult. Steam's really easy. They've definitely made themselves accessible, extremely accessible. But all that stuff I learned how to do for the first time, which is awesome. But then more from the gameplay side and just like making a better game. I've learned a lot about how players play my game and players play in general by seeing how they're responding to what I expect. And so I have a lot of plans for Song 2 in terms of like teaching people how to play much more gradually, so you get comfortable with the control, and then I'll start, asking you to do more, and just sort of strike. We did, the Song 1 had the Burning Village where you kind of learn how to play really quickly. But I sort of just stopped telling you how to do stuff, and some things don't come back for 30 minutes or longer, and so you don't necessarily remember how what to do in that situation. Yeah. And so there's definitely going to be a much bigger push to make people feel more comfortable playing the game. Like you were saying yesterday, you felt like the Viking at the end, and I that journey's great. I just need to more comfortably introduce people to that stuff, and and it's just it's these little player experience moments that I've learned so much about, and so cool. I'm really excited.
Yeah. I was like, I remember like playing the game for the review, and there was this one one moment where I had no idea how to continue, and like you obviously you can't just go to YouTube and look it up.
Yeah, if it's
So
not
I
there,
had to
yeah.
DM you and actually ask you, dude, how can I continue here? And it
I
was
think I asked
super
for a few
easy. It was
tips as
super
well, to be
stupid
fair.
from me, but
Do you remember which one it was? Was that the puzzle in the caves?
yes, the
That was the
puzzle
one
in the
that-
caves, and then you said, "Oh, yeah, you're right. I should add a vine there so that people see you can climb up there,
Yeah.
and that's it." And
Yeah.
yeah, so, but yeah, it was. It's good to hear that you took your lessons learned. And I have to briefly read a couple of questions from
Yeah,
of
yeah.
course here from the chat as well. We have Paul. He's a channel member for 16 months. Dude, I have no idea how you endure my stuff here for 16 months. No, but thank you so much for the support. He says, "Evening, lads. I'm here lurking with having caught COVID, so please accept my apologies for inactivity in the chat." Dude, all the best wishes. Get well soon. No worries. We will play some games once you're back to full health. Take care, man. Take care. And Sith Lord, he's a member for 2 months now. Man, awesome stuff here. He says, "I can't wait for the sequel, Joe."
Yeah.
You and me both, Sith Lord. You and me both. The question I want to read is from Andrew Sauce, though. Let me briefly throw it up on screen. So he asks, "I enjoy stylized graphics like Wolf Amongst Us. Do you think increased processing power and realism will make future games look more the same?"
That's a good question. I think it would be a shame if people only made realistic looking games, as we look at mine, which is sort of trying to do that. I think there's always going to be a reason to do artistic and stylized things, and I think there's plenty of places to put processing power, even in what you might think of as like a lower resolution or lower graphic fidelity game. That's sprite counts and better lighting effects. You can put all this stuff in if you're not spending it on super high resolution textures and all that kind of stuff. I think the future for me is to do something more in that direction and less in the super realistic path, which I kind of am trying on. And I think you're going to see a lot more indies with more like higher fidelity looking stuff because it's more accessible to them.
Yeah.
But I don't think as a whole we'll see the industry only.
See, that's something I've learned recently. A couple of weeks ago, we had the solo developer from Stormride on here, and he I asked him specifically this question because he's also going for a super realistic look with an open world RPG, and I did not expect that from an indie game. They are used to. A lot of people have in mind like pixelated art styles and stuff like that when you think of indie games. And he actually answered in a very similar way. He says, like, dude, it was way easier to do realistic because you can just download assets and have your own stylized art style that you actually have to create. So I found that really interesting.
Yeah, with the Unreal purchased Megascans, which is a company that has, a million or something assets that are like full 3D photogrammetry scanned, and so it's just like, do you want a super realistic rock? You just download it. I this time I'm doing a lot of editing on all that stuff to make it more performant and my own little bit of a style to it, but it's still so much content is coming from there, and it's crazy easy. The fear obviously is that you'll see the same rock in a lot of games, which is going to be one of the reasons that I'm trying to make sure I edit it all a little bit.
Yeah.
At least a little, if not a lot. But yeah, I'm looking forward to doing more art next time. So I'm going to be going away from it, which is funny, but.
Good stuff. Drawn TJ sends in another generous super chat. Man, thank you so much for the support. Really means a lot. Thank you. He says your game needs to be in Game Pass.
I agree. I wish it was up to me. But yeah, it would be awesome.
And by the way, Boxy, I'm very glad you eventually beat that troll.
Yeah, dude. It was like it took me way too long. It took me way too long to beat that troll, but it you
You're a
know
bit rusty.
I mentioned that in the green room as well to Joe. I said like it, but that's a me thing. It breaks my kind of my brain. I play with the controller, yeah, and
Yeah,
you have to like aim with the right trigger. And
yeah,
you usually don't do that in games. So when I press the right button, it I just wasn't able to aim. And I had the same thing with the first game, and it took me like 30 minutes or so to get used to it. But once you have it down, it's actually kind of intuitive. So yeah, Joe, make with that what you want.
Yeah, no, totally. It's the controls was something I struggled with all through the first game, and it's going to be a struggle with the second game. I think I'm definitely going to spend a lot more time on it. I've removed some actions just completely from the game to reduce the amount of button memorization you needed and stuff, and so
Yeah.
I do now have room to do some more experimenting. The reason, I mean, to go in the weeds, like it's on that stick was because it was the right click on the mouse is what brought it up. So I was trying to, in my brain, I was keeping everything on the same like hand or whatever. But yeah, it's definitely something I need to look at, and hopefully I'll have better remapping options this time. Is a goal too, and then
remapping would also be absolutely.
Yeah, you can do it on the PC for mouse and keyboard controls, but you can't do gamepad controls. Yeah.
I play like almost everything I can with the controller. I just prefer it over most
totally
mouse and
makes
keyboard.
sense.
So, yeah. Mr. China Dark wants to know. Hang on, I want to highlight that question. Why doesn't it here? I want to know when the Netflix series for Song of Iron is coming, titled Song of Iron: The Lost Viking.
That's a good question. That's super funny. Actually, I knew somebody who was pitching it at some Hollywood thing, and at the time, this is very vague, nothing crazy. They were like, "Oh, there's another one coming," and it was the Viking movie that just came out maybe last year with Andrew Skarsgård or whatever it was called.
yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah, there's already a revenge Viking movie in the works, so now we're good."
I gotcha.
It was going to happen if they weren't making it or anything. It wasn't that like, "Oh, we should have talked to you a month ago," but
yeah,
that did happen. Funny enough, so maybe one day we'll see.
Hit up Amazon. They've lost Vikings now, so you may as well.
Yeah, right.
There's a spin-off, but I haven't watched that yet.
Vikings Valhalla on Netflix.
Yeah. I haven't watched that yet. Yeah. The Northman, though. Good. Yeah, the movie you're referring to, I think it was called The Northman, right?
Yeah, that's it.
I did not like that movie. But
I didn't love it either. I thought it was awesome at the beginning, and it slowly got worse and worse. And by the end, I was like, "Oh, this isn't the movie I thought it was going to be."
Exactly the way I felt. Yeah.
It's like one of those things that got smaller and smaller. You know what I mean? Like the importance of everything. I was like, nothing matters here. You guys are in no man's land. Like,
I was like, okay, are they going supernatural now, or are they trying to stay realistic? I had no idea at the end, and yeah. But let us talk about your game, because your game also had a very, very surprising ending, and I'm not gonna spoil it here for those who haven't played the first one. It was like kind of on inside level craziness at the end. I also remember playing this for the review, and I knew Dutch had a code as well, and it was like, dude, are you already there? Are you already there? That we were like, what is going on here? It was amazing. It really. I did not expect it. I loved the ending. So without spoiling it too much, for those who have played it, can we expect that the game continues directly after the one, or the first one, or where do we start with Song 2 here? And can you let us a little bit into the lore of the game there?
Yeah, totally. Song 2 is going to follow pretty much directly after the ending of part 1. I think I might even go backwards a little bit and play through just that last moment just one more time as sort of a recap. I definitely want people to be able to pick up Song 2, not having played the first one, and know what's going on at least a little bit. so people can play without playing the first. Is a big goal for me. But yeah, you're gonna pick up right from the end, and you're gonna go right from there. Now you know that there's this big kind of problem to be dealt with that's bigger than what your small problem was in the first one, and you're gonna go right into it.
You kind of teased that at the end of the demo. I just let
through. It's definitely there. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean the spoilers for the first one are going to keep coming. I think it's in the trailer for sure, and it might seem super crazy, but I'm excited to be able to talk about it. I was so secretive about almost the second half of the game completely.
Yeah, you had to, man. It would have been. It was really a big surprise when I played it. I absolutely did not expect that.
Not in a million years.
Yeah. So now I'll be talking about it more. So hopefully people, I hate to ruin the surprise for people who haven't played yet, but hopefully, it'll be nice to talk about it more. Now.
Absolutely. And I see you have a couple of fans here in the chat. We have Oscar Emilio saying, hello all. I love the first game. This looks even better. And I can confirm it sure does look better. You can really tell. Shisno says, is there a tentative release window you're shooting for? Really love the first game. Keep it installed just in case.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, on both of those, it definitely is looking way better. I'm really excited about the performance I'm able to get while improving the visuals. One of the things I'm really proud of, and you're seeing it here, is the mud stuff. And I'm trying to make the world more interactive and feel like you're part of it. So as he rolls around, he gets all muddy and when he's in the mud and stuff. And it's just one of the many things that's going on in the storm and stuff. And
I noticed that as well. I also noticed some changes in the animation of the enemies. Like here, when you see like I dodge roll besides them, and they actually turn around way quicker.
Yeah, they have like a backwards attack now, which helps instead of the very robotic turnaround to fight you. Now they can do that. You're also, one of the big changes too is when you're hitting them, you're actually stunning them. Where before they would just do a reaction, so it helps you juggle more, so you can attack back and forth and keep them off you, and hopefully feel more like a John Wick kind of moment, even more than before. And then the other question was, release date. Honestly, I was trying originally to do like a 2-year cycle, but I'm kind of getting to a point where I'm going to go for a longer stint, so I really don't know anymore when it's going to come out, because I kind of had the big plans for Song 2 are there. The systems are coming together, but I want to make sure I can deliver a game that's just above and beyond what the first one was, and really put a lot of high quality stuff in there. And I think it was maybe one of the mistakes of the first one. Or, it's good because I got through it and I got to release it. And knowing now what I know from that, I want to make sure I implement all that stuff in the best way possible, and take some time and make it more beautiful and better animation and all that stuff. So, awesome. So unknown for sure.
Unknown, and that's a fair assessment. Take the time you need. We're gonna be waiting, and I can't wait to see all the updates, guys. If you don't follow Joe, that's actually how I discovered him, because he is one of the very few developers that posts regularly on his Twitter account just about some stuff he's working on the game, and give you a little insight in the development process. And you have kind of like the feeling that you're part of this journey, and that's really cool. So his link is in the description of the show note for those who haven't followed him yet. Definitely do so. I also want to read a super chat from Mr. Joanna Dark. He says, hello, Joe. Good to see you again on a podcast. After Song of Iron, what is the next game you want to build? What genre or who would be your dream dev to work with on the game?
That's a good question. There's a game that I'm always trying to make, and I worked on it again after Song 1 just to see where my skills were at for it, because it's definitely a bigger, more involved project, and it's sort of a Miyazaki open world Daisy something crazy in that realm. And I built a pretty big piece of it recently. Really just a demo, but you could fly around in the little like fluttering kind of craft that they've got in like Howl's Moving Castle and that stuff. And shoot people, and it was multiplayer, and I was starting to figure those systems out. So I mean, dream game is to make something like that, some really big open world Miyazaki game, basically. Dream dev team is tough. I really enjoy solo. I think a few of my close friends who I trust a lot, that are animators also by trade, would be awesome to work with them, because we think alike, and it'd be a very sort of visual first building kind of process, and I think that would be the way to go. I think small teams are the way, and I think it's always great to be in a small team. Having a network engineer would be awesome to do the multiplayer stuff.
to help you out with that.
Oh my goodness, that stuff is tough. But yeah, it's tough to say.
Yeah, good stuff. So we already talked about a little bit some of the changes in the animation and some of the details, like you mentioned, the mud. What about some core gameplay elements? There were like minor riddles to solve, puzzle riddles, if you will, in the first one. Are you going to change that, or will there be additional like new gameplay elements that we haven't seen in the first one?
Yeah, there's a bunch of new stuff, and it's one of the reasons I want to make sure I take the time to fulfill these new systems as much as I can. I mean, the first one was a very linear, you just walking from the right to left all the way across until you finish. To make it very plainly spoken about, but this time there's basically these islands. We're sailing back and forth between them a bit, and you're kind of trying to help or convince these clans to join you. And the exploration has gone way up. The puzzles have improved a lot. They teach you for better puzzles. I'm not just putting you having one big puzzle in the middle that's that's like really hard and with no lessons. And there's definitely more Metroidvania-ness to the whole game. It's not, I wouldn't say it's like really heavy, but it's there, and there's reasons to come back, and you're going to get more abilities and stuff than the first one had, and it's all going to be a good reason to go back and to discover something new. And there's more of what happened at the end, and all spread out throughout the game. So there's this, you'll go through and do a normal Viking thing, and then you kind of do, you work on that twist, and it all culminates at the end. And so the game's going to be much longer than the first one, much bigger, just overall. Yeah,
that's cool.
A lot more things.
We talked about this a little bit about in the green room as well. But I already said there, you have to repeat it live on the air, because when we talked about the first game, you mentioned that you already had the idea for the story and where it goes for like maybe 3 parts in your head. And now you're mentioning, okay, this is gonna be probably maybe the final one, the second one. So, what led to that?
Yeah, it's tough. So I mean, I kind of split it into the trilogy because it's natural to kind of do these three parts, and that way I could get the first one done actually, and not have this huge story. But the more I work on this one, and the more I'm honestly ready to move on to something new, or preparing myself to be ready, because I think, as a creative, I always want to try new stuff and challenge myself on that. And so the more I think about it, the more I'm excited to make this game even bigger and kind of finish up the whole story in the second part. And I think, honestly, it's the better way. I think the third game would be probably not as good in a few ways, because I don't know, without getting into it too much, it's like, it'll be better to have the third game be condensed into like an hour and a half, just have it be this great rampage moment. And I think it would have felt maybe drawn out too much if I made a third game, the more I think about it. And also, honestly, I'm getting inspired to work on some new stuff, kind of like I'm saying. I don't know if you guys have watched Primal yet on HBO. Yeah. It's like an animated thing. That show is so cool, and I was like, I want to make this game. Not that I'm gonna, but it's like that just screams awesome video game to me. And so I instantly felt that like draw to make something different.
Okay.
Even though it's hilariously similar to Song of Iron in a lot of ways, but I just felt it. It's just like, oh, okay, maybe I should close this down and evolve from there. So, and that's part of the. It's going to take a little longer, but
it's cool. That's
Should have a
cool.
great
No,
game, yeah.
man, if you have other creative ideas and want to work on something different, go for it.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what it will turn out to be. But first, you obviously have a long way to go with Song 2.
Yeah. Definitely.
Will we see new weapons in that game?
Absolutely, I want to. I think at the very least, like more diversity of axes and spears. You know, the spear was a really kind of underplayed thing in the first one, and the sword
Yeah.
too just sort of shows up, and they feel very similar. And the hope will be that honestly, the sword and the axe were basically using the same animation in the first one. I mean, there's like all these things. There's like very kind of cheaply done in a way, or simply done, and I hope to step away from that and make the sword feel way more unique, spear feel better, and then add some more stuff there. Like a two-handed sword would be cool too. You know, all that kind of stuff.
Dutch, do you wanna wanna put out the next question to Joe?
Yeah, well, I mentioned it on the podcast yesterday, but obviously for your audience, I want to ask a similar or same question, to be honest, and that is with regards. Of course, you have these, especially in the first one, you had these sequences with these awesome boss battles, but you did mention, of course, you wanted to change things up a little bit as well, and not kind of. You mentioned the troll moment specifically. Having had that like 3 times in the first one, you're like, you don't want to go through that again in the second one. You don't want to have just fighting. Like, you take away the kind of edge of it where you see the troll for the first time and have that moment, but then play it again and again. In the second one, kind of what rough plans have you got so far? What rough ideas have you got so far for some awesome boss sequences? Any things you're thinking about putting in?
Yeah, I definitely am going to increase the boss count in this one, and just improve even the ones that the sort of copycat bosses should be different. I've got a big maul for the troll, like a big kind of tree trunk with metal spikes at the end of it that he'll bust out in one of his iterations. So, it's these things where I want to read troll because he looks awesome, and but I can do more than just copy and paste him to another spot. Here's the the one with the weapon and stuff like that. So that'll be a big thing. So you'll get some diversity there. But then also, you're going to be fighting more gods. You're going to be fighting more of this mysterious enemy in different incarnations than what we've seen, and some bigger, more bosses that are part of sort of Nordic lore too, because everything's seeping through now more and more. So
yeah,
I really want to fight like an ice giant, a monster creature.
I was just about to say giants.
Sure. Trying to figure out how to manage that is going to be interesting, but I definitely want to. I know the place that they live within the world and stuff, and so I just gotta figure it out. Yeah, how to make that fight happen. I did as a test scaled the troll up like 4 times. Had him walking around in the background, and it just looks so cool that scale. But figuring out how to make that fight work is going to be a challenge. So, but
definitely. Definitely. Maybe he's further on in the game when you've got kind of, I don't know whether or not you're going through the electrified arrows or fire arrows and things again, but
more of that. There's gonna be more mobility too, like a super jump and just some larger scale mobility. I think is going to come into play this time, and that sort of thing will help a lot too.
Yeah. Awesome.
And
I think another follow-up question to the fighting section. I know you mentioned just a second ago there about the weapons as well and changing up the weapons, but will you get Odin's hammer or Thor's hammer, should we say?
It will. I'm sure it'll come back in some iteration. We'll see. I mean, the one, gosh, it's impossible to not give away stuff on the first one. It's it's like that. That one is different, right? It's a different one. It's a fake, and so we'll see how that stuff comes back. But yeah.
In chat, Mr. Joanna Dark asks, "Will it be Steam Deck verified?"
Yeah, the first one is verified for Steam Deck. I didn't do anything. I just got an email from Steam, and they said, "Hey, we checked, and you're verified." So I was like, "All right, cool. Happy about that. Hard to beat it." And then I would assume I'm definitely going to try to make the second one. I think it's one of the benefits of having such a simple game as far as the systems are concerned is it just sort of works in all these situations that I think other games probably struggle with because they have more complexity and they're relying on those systems more. So when a new thing comes up, it's a little difficult, but yeah, lucky for me.
Cool.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Awesome stuff.
The story was told, well, basically through a couple of texted script on screen. Will there be a difference in how the story is presented, like either cutscenes or? I know you mentioned yesterday on the show something about voice acting. So tell us a little bit. What about how is the story gonna be presented to?
Yeah,
gamers?
it's gonna be presented very similar to the first one as far as like what you're seeing on screen. I think the big change is going to be the voiceover work that I'm gonna do. I think it's about kind of getting the emotions. Like I'm trying to keep the script short and simple again. It'll be longer because there's more stuff involved, but having the voice to go along with the script is just going to add kind of the emotion and the intention of what a lot of the dialogue is. I think that will help a lot. I think if I end up with a lot of time, I can do a little bit. I don't even want to call them cutscenes, but sort of like on-screen action happening, similar to the very beginning of the first one with the loved one when he's on the ground, and he's holding her and stuff. Sort of having those moments just happen naturally, like as you kind of come across them. But I definitely don't want to cut away and have some rendered moment play out. I definitely want to avoid those. But they're expensive, but also I think I love just keeping you in the world as much as possible and never feeling like I do a cut or pull you out or anything like that as much as I can. And I think as cool as those can be sometimes, I think maybe those do kind of like go, okay, now I'm gonna put my controller down and watch for a minute, and then it kind of does can pull you out a little bit. So I'm gonna definitely avoid those, but hopefully my voice acting and whoever helps me out won't pull you out.
Since you mentioned that, I went back and listened to it again, and I was like, "Well, it is Joe."
Yeah. You can't hear it, but it's a lot different, and I don't hate it. Which normally, when you hear yourself, right, it's just the worst thing. And so, I'm happy with it. How that managed to turn out.
That's cool. Since we are on the topic of audio, will there be any improvements in the audio design, like sound effects and such?
I think so a little bit. I haven't figured out exactly my plan for it yet. I hope to work with the same team that did some of the design last time. One of the weaknesses for me with sound design in the first game was the system was pretty weak, just in terms of how we were managing the sound and everything. And I've already made a ton of improvements to that. I mean, I basically destroyed it and rewrote it, and that's going to help with the music. It's going to help with sound effects. It's going to just help with everything across the board. And it's this, sometimes a really complicated system that's made for a big AAA game isn't necessarily the best thing for what I'm trying to achieve. And so I've removed the Fmod, which we were using also, and I'm just going to use Unreal's native stuff. And that lets me build it exactly how I want it for the game. And so I look forward to it being a much cleaner and much more sort of visceral sound in that, like, it's very focused on the most important moment and everything else is kind of faded away a little bit. Yeah.
Cool. Good stuff. Good stuff. Dave Ramos sends in a super chat, $5. Thank you so much for the support, man. He asks, what aspect of video game development would you say is your superpower and which aspect is a challenge?
Man, I think animation is totally my superpower. That's what I did in the industry before I went solo. I was animator on a bunch of stuff from Cryptic, like Neverwinter and Star Trek Online, and then I worked on Halo 5 and Halo Infinite as a contract animator, and all the way to eventually being the lead character animator for Infinite. And I don't think it shows completely in Song of Iron because I use the superpower to animate very quickly and then move on, because the stuff that's hard, which is the most challenging stuff, is the system engineering, which I'm not super good with. Just because I'm an animator, I'm not an engineer, and so I'm all blueprints the whole time. And then porting to new systems is extra challenging because there's no blueprints in the gray zone between Unreal and Xbox and Steam. There's like actual engineering needed. So I struggle with that quite a bit.
Good. Yeah, man. Everyone has its strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
We have, like, usually during our podcast at the very end, we do community questions that people can send in early for those who can't make it live to the show and can't or watch around or listen to the podcast on the podcast services around the globe, like Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and such. So I do have a question here from Jonathan Smith that I wanted to read to you. He says, "Hey guys, got a question for Joe. With an unlimited budget of development resources, what would be your most ambitious dream project to work on?" I mean, it's a similar question that we already had.
No. Yeah, I mean, it's a similar answer. The first thing I'll say is unlimited resources is a poison, and it will corrupt any game being developed. I think, as much as it sounds awesome, I think unlimited resources is a bad thing. You know, I would rather work on a shoestring budget. Well, it'd be nice to have a decent budget, of course, but I would prefer a comfortable budget with, at the max, like if we're talking like a big kind of dream project, like 30-ish people, I think you really don't want to go too far. I think it's so much better to make a game where everybody's involved directly with the whole thing and everybody can play together, like, every day at 1:00 and then come together and talk about it and then go back and work. That dream project right now, though, is that Miyazaki open world Daisy crossover something game. I think the world of Miyazaki is incredible, and I think it's barely been touched. Like the way he presents stories and creates a world with backstory without ever telling you about it is incredible. And a lot of people try to do it, and I think it hasn't quite been managed in the way that I see it, at least. And I would love to throw my hat into that ring and see what I can do.
Good stuff. I see there is a fan for here. Doom Reaper asks the question, will there be Song of Steel?
That's a good question. Well, we'll see if the forging upgrades enough.
And Ballantone sends in a question. It's similar to the question I asked you actually yesterday on the team. Did you get any help from the Xbox team? In that case, it probably is the ID at Xbox team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no help with development directly, but help as far as marketing is concerned and visibility. Just being part of it in any way, being mentioned in any of their releasing, press release stuff is always a benefit. It adds so much legitimacy. I mean, there's hundreds of indie games get released every day at this point, it seems like, and having any boost to kind of the credibility of a game is sort of a priceless thing. So that's where most of the help comes from.
Okay. I know we talked a little bit about this yesterday. How is the process with like the dev kits going, and is it easy to bring the game to work on the series development kit now that the next gen consoles are here, or current gen consoles?
Yeah, I'm actually, so I was basically using, for the first one, I used the old system, XDK, Xbox Development Kit.
Yeah.
And so it's, my game is really an Xbox One game that you can just play on the newer stuff, technically. Yeah. I did some tricky stuff, so you did get some boosts and everything on the newer systems, but the new GDK, which is the system, which crosses from the new ones to the old ones and to PC, so far is great. Honestly, I'm updating to it as we speak. I just moved over to 5 Sunday and Monday. And then part of that reason was to do GDK with all the new stuff that 5 has that makes the GDK stuff even easier. So I'm just starting to get my fingers into it, but I already had it running. I mean, I think I turned it off right as we started the podcast, that I had Song 2 up on the the new stuff. So
on
it
the
seems
event.
to be nice and easy this time. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so now with going on to Unreal 5, because you mentioned there's a lot of stuff that you don't need, and 90% or something of this kit that they give you in Unreal 5 you don't need. But is it a case of you're probably going to sit there? Obviously now, thankfully, and I say this from personal perspective as well, from yourself, not because the first one we know, and I know having spoken to you many times throughout the first development, how stressed you got specifically near the end. And obviously now you're having that ability to kind of take a step back and say, no, I'm going to take my time with this one and just get it right. Is it going to be a case of potentially learning Unreal and what Unreal has to offer and seeing what might enhance that game further then?
I think maybe a little bit. I'm sure there's some systems that I didn't touch really and avoided and stuff, even on 4, but 5 now with, this huge library of new things. I think some of it, I think a lot of it I can do without, I'm going to avoid like Lumen and whatever the super resolution for all the pixels thing was called.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, just because because I'm going to try to get onto the base Xbox and all this stuff, I'm going to just sort of avoid some of those super systems that I just don't think I need really either, because of my lock camera really lets me kind of play to stuff without needing to worry about some of that. But there's definitely things. I know they've improved some of the lighting stuff, and even outside of Lumen, which I think Lumen is just sort of on all the time. I know it's all called Lumen, but there's definitely some stuff there. But I think for the most part, it's more about building better content and taking more time with it. The first one, you'll notice there's like very little effects in it, and it's because I couldn't learn another system, and so there's just very, very little effects. And I hopefully will have more time to do more effects in this one. I'm already doing it with like the storm, and you can see there's just more stuff already going on.
100%.
It's more about filling out already avoided than anything.
Yeah, I think we touched on this yesterday, but obviously for those who haven't played the demo, he has now managed to implement DLSS on the PC version.
Yes.
So DLSS is going to be available on PC for the game going forward. And I think you mentioned as well looking at potentially getting FSR for the Xbox version as well.
Yeah, definitely is the goal. I think the performance increases from those systems is just like, it's mind-boggling. It's crazy. So I think it's a brainer. I assume it's almost as easy too. So
yeah.
That's what we hear. Hey, we're no developers. We just read stuff on the internet, right?
Yeah. Click the on button and it works.
Yeah. So Joe, we are almost closing in on a full hour with you on the show. I want to say a big thank you for coming on here. I want to wish you, of course, all the best for the development of Song 2. We will definitely keep in touch, and if you're open to it, you're absolutely welcome to come back here. Let people know here. And guys, if you have one last question here in chat, definitely drop it in now. Last chance. In the meantime, let people know where they can find Song of Iron.
Yeah, right now, Song of Iron is on Steam and Xbox. You can just search Song of Iron. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, which I'm pretty much the most active with sharing kind of what's going on, it's just at Song of Iron as well. And check it out. And subscribe to the newsletter, like Boxwork said. You get a free soundtrack. Not the first game, I'll give it away. And then, you can get a demo for the new one.
You definitely do. It's awesome. Guys, in the description here of the show note, just a little arrow thing, click there and you will find the links to his Twitter, to songofiron.com, where you can sign up for the newsletter. And with that, you get access to the demo. We've watched my playthrough 3 times now. And I'm going to do another one where I don't need that many attempts to beat the troll. But it's fantastic. It actually runs on a lot of devices, so you don't have to have a superpowered PC.
It's better this time.
Absolutely. So, highly recommend to check this out. Again, Joe, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure talking with you. So many laughs, so many insights. It was fantastic. Thank you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. It's always fun to chat with you guys and talk about Iron or just games in general. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, and we will have you back and see how the development progress has been. It's always fun.
Definitely,
So awesome.
definitely.
Well, thank you, Joe. Take care
Uh,
and have a great
yeah,
one.
thank you, and thanks everybody for hanging out. See ya.
Cheers,
Yeah,
Joe.
thank you. See ya. All right, guys. All right. That was fun. It's always fun to talk with Joe, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm going to
So
get, because him and Thomas Saller have done events together now on game development, etc. I think I'm going to hit them both up and see if I can get them on to talk development as opposed to just games. I think that'll be an interesting show. Definitely.
Oh, that for sure, for sure. But man, speaking of games, what have you been playing lately?
See, I've been aside from trying out Deathloop, I've been playing Ni no Kuni. It's my
Oh,
first. I did ask, from the one thing I asked before we seen TGS was a nice new start again. A nice new JRPG. My mind went completely blank there.
yeah. Yeah, I'm just
Well, at
throwing
least,
up some footage of what I've been playing, but
yeah.
please continue. I want to hear about Ni no Kuni because I was thinking actually about downloading it, but there's just so
Oh,
much to play right now with Deathloop
absolutely.
and
I
everything.
highly
Yeah.
recommend it. It is an absolutely gorgeous game. Like it is, like, the art style is phenomenal. The story's really good. The acting's good. The voice acting's good. The combat is enjoyable. It's a little bit different to what a lot of people are used to. Specifically, for those who haven't played it, of course, Ni no Kuni and Revenant Kingdom are already out on PC, etc. If you want to buy them and play them. But Ni no Kuni: Wrath of the White Witch is obviously now on Xbox on Game Pass. Revenant Kingdom 2 will be out, or Part 2, Revenant Kingdom, will be out next year on Game Pass as well, in a HD remastered version. But no, it's the one thing I asked from TGS was a nice new Japanese RPG game that I can sink my teeth into and enjoy. Um, and this is delivered for me. This is the game that I was kind of hoping for. It is a really beautiful game. Great story, great artwork, cool combat, nice little level up system. Great characters so far. I mean, I'm only about 5-6 hours into it, but it's about 40-hour game. I think it is overall. So pretty lengthy. Not too lengthy though at the same time.
Is it very fast paced? Because the way you describe it, it sounds to me like this is gonna be my next xCloud game. I always have one game that I play through on xCloud.
No, thankfully, I wouldn't say it's fast paced.
Yeah.
It's a happy medium. There's a lot of save points in there as well. So I'm doing it in chunks, and of course, as as you know now, obviously I've, with ADHD and things like that, like, my attention span can dwindle even with the games I love.
Yeah.
Um,
Nah,
so
it
it's
is,
great.
yeah.
I can take like bursts of like an hour or 2 hours or something and get a good chunk of the story done and get to a save point and then saved, and then I can just pick right up where I left off, and it's got nice little indications of where you need to go. Um, so no, I would say it's a game you can kind of hack away at over time and not really lose track of what you've got to do or anything
Sweet.
like that. It's really
Sweet.
good.
Good. Anything else that kept you busy?
Of course, Metal Hellsinger.
Yeah. Right here on screen?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what it is. I go back and I try to beat my high scores. I try to, again, we're in a mini competition with Jen as well, to see who can get the biggest score on Stygia level. I'm on like 9.7 million on that at something at the moment, which is like, I think it was 94% at 16 times. So I was almost at I don't think you'll ever get 100. I think 99 is probably going to be the highest because you don't start the
Yeah.
level at 16 times. So I'm close. I'm close to getting the ultimate amount on it. I just a little
Sweet.
bit more work.
Sweet.
But
It's a
yeah,
fantastic game. Yeah, I've been playing that as well. Finished it actually twice. I did the
yeah,
first playthrough on easy, and then the second one on the middle thing, whatever it is called.
gorge.
Yeah. And yeah, it's an awesome game. I highly recommend it for everyone who loves games like Doom. It's super fast paced, and once you get the hang of the rhythm based shooting and slashing, it's just a lot of fun. You can see the footage here on screen. I enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, I was
Beside-
surprised. I was surprised yesterday though when you said the sword was your favorite weapon. I
yeah.
was like, what?
Yeah. You
I
can see
hate
that
that
here.
thing.
I'm usually I just switch to the skull usually in between the different sections to keep the counter up. Yeah, and then I just go back to right to the sword, and with the sword you can just slash everything. Um, so yeah, I love it. It's fantastic. It's really good. And the soundtrack is obviously amazing. And it's an incredible achievement for such a small team to get all these high profile bands on there and make dedicated songs for that game so that you don't get any like copyright strikes when you stream it or something. So like bands like System of a Down made tracks solely for this game. It's incredible, an incredible achievement, and I highly recommend it for not only the metal fans but everyone who likes fast paced shooters. um
Yeah,
it's just good.
100%.
Just a good game.
100%.
Yeah. And besides that, I started actually a Deathloop. Still
Same.
early in, like 3 hours or so. So, what did you think of Deathloop?
It's still got to get me yet. I find it intriguing. The story is definitely far different than I thought it was going to be. The story is very different, actually. I intentionally didn't, because of course I don't have a PlayStation 5 yet, so I intentionally didn't pay attention to reviews or anything like that because I wasn't going to get a chance to play it at that point.
Yep.
And the gaming laptop I've got now, which is now capable of playing a game like that properly, I just didn't pick it up. On that, I didn't know whether or not I wanted to buy it because again, eventually it would come to Xbox, and of course it has come out. So it is completely new to me in terms of story wise and everything like that. The shooting mechanics and everything I tend to find are kind of average for what a shooter would be. They are a shooter. It's well done. The mechanics are good. It plays well. But yeah, I don't know what it is about it. I don't know whether or not it's just because I know I've got to go round in circles essentially forever until I find enough clues and finish the game. I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
whether or not it's just that aspect of it that's kind of grinding on us a bit already. But hey, it is a good game. The story's intriguing. I think it's just the fact that the way the game is meant to be played, which is obviously dying and repeating and dying and repeating and finding your clues and ultimately eventually figuring out what's going on. I might just take it in small chunks, I think. But otherwise, it's a good game. What about you?
It is. Yeah. I didn't expect the story to be told in that way, honestly. It's super fast paced, like the banter in between Cold and Julia. They go back and forth, and it's fun. It's actually like not serious, doesn't take itself too serious. It's the humor is good. I like it. So far, I'm really having a blast. But I've heard a lot of people say on Twitter that after a couple of hours into the game, they kind of got bored because it became repetitive. So yeah, I've yet to see that. So far, I'm like, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 hours in. I want to give a few little advice for those who also played for the first time, because it's really weird to me. But for instance, what you definitely should do is, if you go into the game settings, go to audio and turn on 3D audio, because it is by default turned off. And it is a game changer for that game, especially in the stealth areas. You can then really well hear where the people walk, and you can adjust your strategy to it. It helps a lot, and it's actually a very good 3D audio. They turned it off by default for some reason. I don't know why. And I also highly recommend for those who play the game on a VRR screen to play it in the 4K quality mode, graphic quality mode. You will still get the 60 FPS with VRR. You won't notice the drops, but you get a very pristine and sharp image. So that's my advice for those.
Yeah.
Other than that, man, yeah, H4 still keeps me busy. But I'm not gonna go into that because I know people want to talk about the spicy thing, the spicy news of the day,
Spicy.
the spicy news. Satya Nadella, I think you've heard of him, for CEO of Microsoft. He woke up and he chose war. He chose violence. In an interview with Bloomberg Television, he said talked about the Activision deal. So let me read for those who haven't had the chance to read up on the news yet. Let me read what Satya Nadella had to say. Of course, any acquisition of this size will go through scrutiny, but we feel very, very confident that we'll come out, he said. Microsoft is either number 4 or number 5 competitor in the video game industry, depending on how you count. So, by the way, no mention here of third place. We always said Microsoft is third place. Satya says they are number 4 or 5, depending on how you count. And the number 1 player, Sony Group Corporation, has made several recent acquisitions. So, if this is about competition, let us have competition. So, yeah, basically, he said, bring it, bitches. It's Dutch, I want to hear your thoughts before I give my spiel on this. Yeah, Satya being straight out with his comment is saying, okay, guys, if you want competition, you have to allow this acquisition because then Sony is gonna get competition. As of right now, we are only number 4 or 5 in the video space. So let us have competition. We are open for that. We want competition. So please allow the deal because then we will have competition. What do you think, man, of this?
I think it's great. I think it's showing that from top down, they all absolutely know what they want and they fully expect this thing to go through. They also know, and for anybody who isn't aware of the way the CMA operates, if you have a look at every transaction that's ever been concerning to them, they always have very harsh wording when they're concerned about something. So when you see the CMA come out and say, we've got concerns about X, Y, and Z, so we're going to do in-depth analysis, you tend to find a few months later that they've just approved it. It's like, yeah, after further considerations, we've approved the deal. And it's always going to get the harsh wording initially. And again, and as Satya mentioned in that comment as well, a deal of that size is going to get scrutinized. Of course it is. It's bound to. So it's going to have that level of in-depth kind of scrutinization. But at the same time, like, Microsoft haven't essentially will have probably got the same kind of guarantees about Bungie and Destiny titles, etc. When Sony acquired Bungie, it's not to the same degree, but at that time, they essentially paid what would be the market going rate for Bungie and Destiny, as Microsoft did for Minecraft, which was around that 2 billion mark. So, and again, what happened with Minecraft was that game remained multi-platform. Any new titles have been multi-platform. It has an active player base, so they've kept it everywhere, and ensured it was going to be kept everywhere. Satya, of course, again said it would be counterintuitive for us from a few respects, and I think even the CFO of Microsoft has said the same thing. He said, "Why would we remove Call of Duty on PlayStation when there's 120 million customers on PlayStation or potential customers?" Like, from a financial perspective, it makes no sense to remove Call of Duty from PlayStation. Like, and that is literally all Microsoft have to say to the CMA. Like, listen, from a financial perspective, we would lose money significant amount of money by taking it off PlayStation. It doesn't make sense as to why we do that. Of course, they're going to give them, and this goes back to the previous arguments as well from Jim crying about the about the terms not being adequate.
It's so funny that no one calls him Jim Ryan anymore. You hear either I always call him good old Jimbo, lying Ryan, crying Ryan. Everyone
Crying
has its
Ryan.
nickname, but no one calls him
No one
by
calls him his
his
actual
name.
name
Yeah,
now. No,
I wonder
it's
why.
just it's you only ever see it as well from the competitors that are at the top. And in my industry, it's exactly the same. The leading company that is in my industry and what I do is always the one complaining about everybody else, and they always put legal obligations into contracts with employees and things to prevent them from going anywhere afterwards or speaking to anybody afterwards, etc. And it's always the same. It's counterintuitive, and it's also an anti-competitiveness. So what essentially Jim Cryan is speaking about, and being not an adequate deal. I mean, unless he's expecting, because essentially what is happening is they've got an exclusivity agreement with Call of Duty until 2024 or something along those lines. Might have extended in perpetuity due to Call of Duty having a delay and coming out later than expected. So it might have extended till 25. And what Microsoft have essentially offered is an additional 3 years guaranteed at the moment. And of course, as usual, those legal obligations will be renewed close to the time, and then you renew the contractual terms again. My thinking on the terms that were offered was because Sony are so used to a very large percentage of the profits from Call of Duty going to them from Activision, and in terms of microtransactions and game sales, is that Microsoft's terms don't give them the bigger slice of the pie as they used to. So from a financial aspect, it's not that the term, i.e. the 3 years, is the problem. I think it's the level of monetary return they get from selling Call of Duty on the platform. So I don't think the concern is about the players getting to play it. I think it's solely down to how much money they're going to make from Call of Duty on PlayStation. That's my thinking on that. On the Satya
You bring
Nadella
up
thing.
a great point here. Let me just add to that. I mean, probably not in the first year or the second year, but after like 4, 5, 6 years,
Yeah.
I would be surprised if Call of Duty became or did not become less relevant on PlayStation, simply for the fact that marketing rights are then with Xbox. I don't know whether Xbox. I mean, yeah, they said they're gonna launch the game with the same content on every platform.
Yeah.
Not like Sony does it today, like having launches first or betas first or DLC first or whatever. But the thing is, if players can play it for basically free or what feels free through Game Pass on Xbox, it just will move people over. It just will.
Yeah. And you
And
have
so,
to, if you
yeah,
have a look at different markets as well, and this is what I think Satya is trying to kind of get at as well, is in terms of competition. Like, if Sony truly wanted competition in the market, then an IP wouldn't stand in their way. If you have a look at even going over to JRPGs now,
yeah,
is Final Fantasy as relevant as it once was? No.
nope, yeah,
Do they have unbelievable amounts of competition these days in the likes of Persona or the Yakuza franchise or Astria Ascendant or God knows how many different JRPGs that are out now that are absolutely humongous.
yeah,
Like the Yakuza, like the JRPG and the RPG genre in general has only improved over time because of competition in the market. And in fact, I think Sony once said, or it was some, I forgot, was it Square Enix? It was either Square or someone similar once
what you
said
were
that it was.
referring to?
I'm not. It was basically one of the developers were speaking about pitching a new JRPG to Sony, and they didn't want to know. They just didn't want
Okay.
to invest in it essentially, and they were
Mm.
like, It's not that JRPGs are irrelevant, because of course, look at Final Fantasy, look at X, Y, and Z. It's that they don't want to risk on a new IP. So the problem, I think, with Sony is that they are very hesitant to risk on investing on new IP. And this there is the problem. You've got Apex Legend, which is massive. You've got Fortnite, which is absolutely humongous. Without doubt, the largest shooter on the market, well surpassing Call of Duty by a long shot.
Yeah.
So in terms of competition, I mean, there is lots of competition on FPS. Xbox have their own FPSs. They've got Halo.
Actually, let me read a statement from EA. They had an investor call this week, and they actually also
Battlefield. They said they needed to take it on, but yeah, go for it.
Listen, EA said Call of Duty Xbox exclusivity would be a tremendous opportunity for Battlefield.
Yeah,
there you go. That's
exactly
where Sony sees a problem, others see an opportunity.
Exactly.
Yeah. I get the way Andrew Wilson thinks, CEO of EA, thinks like, listen, if Call of Duty becomes this Xbox shooter, this Xbox exclusive shooter, it's a chance for us to make a new IP that is multi-plat, that is the multi-platform shooter that people enjoy across PC, across PlayStation, across Xbox, across whatever system. Yeah. That's their way of thinking. So it's obvious that only Sony has something against this. And like Satya said, that's because they know if this deal goes through, Xbox becomes a more serious competition. That's when they won't be able to start a console generation by increasing game prices, lying to their customers, charging for next gen patches, increasing console game prices, and all these things. Like, I've said it on Boom's show the other day. Recently I've been attacked a couple of times. I'm used to that. I get attacked by fanboys all the time from all sides. Whenever I say something against Xbox, I get attacked. When I say something against Sony, I get attacked. I got asked a lot, why do I root for Xbox? I'm not rooting for Xbox per se or Microsoft per se. I'm rooting for us customers. I'm rooting for us gamers to get the best value for your buck. And right now, Xbox is providing that. They made gaming more accessible than ever before. They made it cheaper than ever before. They built this unified ecosystem of gaming, because I don't just like to game on my console. I love console gaming. It's my preferred thing to do. But sometimes I'm on the go. I'm lying. We had the conversation the other day. I'm lying in bed and I just want to play handheld gaming. Yeah, the xCloud allows me to do that. When I'm sitting on my desk, I don't lie down or want to lie down on the couch and play on the console. I just can continue my game on my PC right there. It offers me options. All this makes the ecosystem right now the most welcoming, the most customer friendly, and the most cheapest ecosystem there is. That's what I'm rooting for, and I want Sony to follow them in that footstep. I don't want to pay 80 euros for my first party games. I want in PS Plus day and date games, because Sony has an incredible first party games, but I want them to do better by their customers. And that's why I want them to get some serious competition. And Activision Blizzard is that thing. And it's just like Satya said, and that's why I'm fully behind the statement. If you actually want to do something good for the consumers in general, put pressure on Sony. They need that push. They need to drip and get that kick in the ass to finally do something that is customer friendly this generation. They haven't done that this gen.
I was going to say, to follow on from that, the main thing I think, and this is, I think it's mainly from Jim Ryan as opposed to from Sony in general. I think the issue he has specifically is that the entirety of last generation, they had no competition from zero competition from
Exactly.
Xbox.
Yeah.
And now the Xbox are deadly serious about gaming in general, like
Yeah.
deadly serious. Like Satya Nadella has essentially said, we know how much like value there is in this market, and we're fully investing in it. And he said when Phil Spencer first took over at the very top, and Satya went on stage and said, "We are all in on gaming."
Yeah.
That's when it started, and that's when Jim Ryan started having the issue, because that's when the newest, more powerful Xbox One X came out, and it was the most powerful console. And then the next
Absolutely.
consoles come out, and they were the most powerful. And then Game Pass started to get better and better and better, and they started having issues with, oh, it's not sustainable, and trying to peddle that notion all the time. And Xbox were like, well, it is. It's like, we're not profitable in it at this moment, and that was originally. We're not profitable right now, but it's dead even. Like, it isn't not sustainable, but it's also not profitable. It's bang in the middle right now, but it will be profitable. And if it wasn't going to be, and if they didn't think it was going to be, they wouldn't have continued with it. So they are fully looking to be competitive this gen and going forward, and they see the value in what gaming does for everything to do with Microsoft, not just gaming. It also allows them to enhance their cloud proposition. It allows them to enhance their technical and engineering capabilities. It allows them to every orifice of Microsoft and Xbox are intertwined now in many locations and how they operate. And people from Microsoft are changing into roles for Xbox, and Xbox are going into Microsoft to work on their products, and it's all intertwined now. And this is it's real competition and from Microsoft for a change. And that's what Sony are scared of.
Absolutely.
It's not that they have competition in general. It's the fact that Microsoft are actually trying now.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Exactly.
we've started it, and now we don't like what we're seeing. We don't like the fact that we have actual competition or someone trying to give us competition, because
And that
Nintendo are on an entirely different plane. They're not one-to-one competition. Nintendo do Nintendo. They are absolutely leagues beyond anybody else when it comes to sales. Like, no one can compete. For some reason, Nintendo just do and
and
do
then
well.
Nintendo just lives in their own bubble. But the thing is, with Nintendo, they have so much nostalgia. I feel like a lot of the things is coming from nostalgia. People grew up with Nintendo, and now they want their kids to grow up with Nintendo, and that especially let's say more casual gamer.
I mean, did you see the Splatoon 3 sales the other day?
Yeah.
Jesus wept. 3 million sales in 2 days.
In 2 days. It's insane. It's insane. But
Just in
kudos to
Japan.
them.
That was
They
just
are
Japan as well.
It's crazy. But kudos to them. They over the years they consistently release quality games. They might not be for you all the time, but you can't argue about the quality of their first party games.
But you've also got to see, in terms of competition, that Nintendo have never relied on third parties to be successful. And this is where Sony don't kind of understand, is because Xbox have historically also never relied on third party titles to be successful.
Yeah.
It's always been Gears, and this is the trope that we've heard for years: Gears, Halo, Forza, Gears, Halo, Forza, Gears. And because that is what has driven their market. People know Gears, people know Forza, people know Halo. You're gonna get them, as is water is wet. You're gonna get those titles.
True.
But they're going to expand their proposition. Nintendo are doing the same. Of course, Splatoon was never a thing on the previous generation. It is very much a thing on this generation. Of course, you've got Splatoon 3 or whatever it was, or 2, and which is a nice new IP, and it's doing very well. It's huge, it's massive. But they've got lots of other new IPs that they're creating, lots of new titles, and they just keep adding to them. And Zelda's only getting bigger and better, and Mario's changing what it does. And it's just, Nintendo know how to create something new and make it successful. And Sony also know how to do that. The problem is they They have yet to break into the multiplayer. They have yet to break into the games as a service. And I think the issue with them is they're very hesitant to or at least concerned that, okay, what if we're not successful at these things?
Yeah.
And that's why they're really concerned about losing the advertising for Call of Duty.
Call of Duty, because right now that's basically their big live service game, ongoing game. I agree there. I mean, they got the talent. They have like some of the best studios out there, and no other
And with Bungie on
publisher.
board, they've got all possibilities of making the next big first-person live-action shooter. But
Yeah.
are they just concerned that what if it doesn't work out? Is that the issue?
Exactly. What if? What if? I mean, they have like they Bungie now. They own Bungie. That deal is actually already through.
Yeah.
So they have a very robust studio there that has a lot of experience with these kind of games, and they have one of the most successful ongoing games with Destiny. Destiny is super successful. Has its fan base and its player base. So yeah, but I totally agree with you in that regard. I think like, but in general, the problem with Sony really isn't their first party.
No,
We know
not at all,
they
because their
have
first party is
quality.
always
They have
successful. I think sometimes with their first party is they don't know when to capitalize on the fans asking for it. Now, of course, we've got certain games that we'd love to see come back again, but they're second party games. So the likes of Rise, of course, we've said for years we want a Rise 2. We really want a Rise 2.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're still waiting on it, but it's never going to happen. But that's a second party title. That's a game that was developed for Xbox from a second party. They've got Days Gone, which sold 8 million copies, 10 million if you include PC
and
sales.
they weren't happy with that.
And they're not happy with it. And it's like, really? Like, that's like you're apparently only happy if it does 20 million. Now it's unrealistic. Not every, and if you have a look at their actual sales records, counter to popular belief, not every Sony exclusive does 20 million sales. It's about four of their titles have hit 20 million. If you have a look, including series totals, that's a different story entirely. But if you're going to do series totals on Halo or Forza or Gears, you're going to get way past 20 million as well. So that's not the thing. It's singular titles. Singular titles, very few have hit that 20 million mark. So it's an unrealistic target. It's kind of like the Square Enix like conversation. Every time they mention something's not successful, you're like, what? Like it's as successful as Final Fantasy. I don't understand what you're talking about.
and there you see, that's the problem with Sony right now. It's really not their first party studios. Studios like Bend, I actually really like Days Gone, and Insomniac and all these studios. They are fantastic. The problem is the management at the headquarters. Sony, how they handle the platform, how they make their pricing decisions, how they make their let's say service availability decisions and stuff like that. And that's the issue. And you can tell that if you put like a super successful game with 8 millions in the category of like, well, you're not successful, you can already tell that that's greedy management. And this greed is showing with their first party studios. It's showing with to us, shows to us gamers. And that's the thing. I've seen an interesting question here in chat, Dutch. I want to discuss that briefly with you. Armin Sinj says, I wonder what will happen to Sony Microsoft deal on cloud tech, because Sony is really throwing in the wrench in Microsoft's acquisition. I bet you executives must be surprised by Sony's comments.
I don't think the cloud, because obviously they've got an Azure contract with Sony as well. I don't think they care. Like that's not going to put any hitches in that, because Microsoft want money. So that's like little comments and back and to and fro's like this aren't going to disrupt that deal in any way, shape, or form. Like, as long as they're getting paid, and if they want a cloud tech or want an Azure contract, then they can have it. it certainly won't be Microsoft's most lucrative cloud contract that they've got out there. So I don't think at the end of the day they'd care too much if Sony decided not to do it. As far as I was aware, Sony haven't been using the cloud tech they've been contracted with anyway. It's still underutilized. They still haven't really made the most out of what cloud tech they've been contracted for. So
we haven't heard anything about that in a while. But the thing is, obviously, companies do stuff like that. If you have like multiple business relationships and one goes down the drain, obviously you put other potential collaborations or partnerships on the table as well. But I don't feel like we're at this point. I feel like that for that the deal would have to go a lot more down on the crapper, honestly. So when they are fighting the CMA or the FTC or I don't know which regulatory in court, then we are at that point maybe. But right now, I think Microsoft knew that a lot of regulatories are gonna look at this deal a lot closer than like a Bethesda deal, simply because of its size. A 70 billion deal. That's something where really it doesn't matter whether it's gaming or not, or any other business.
It's one of the largest transactions, or at least one of the largest mergers in history, let alone just tech.
And obviously that's that the regulators are going to look at this a lot closer than with any other acquisition. So that's I don't think the surprising part. I think like what surprises everyone, including the execs at Microsoft, is how public Sony is trying to block this deal. And it just shows, like we said, they are afraid of the competition they are gonna get, but it's the competition they definitely need. In terms so that we gamers get more and better value on that platform.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think Sony just need to, it's. I think they, and obviously they're concerned about losing the bottom line, but if they had faith, which in some cases I think shows they don't, because they still base far too much of the company's success on critical acclaim. I think, and this is one thing that Microsoft don't do or Xbox don't do, is yes, they like getting the critical acclaim, but they don't put like every success on it. Like if a game does well and gets in like mid 80s, high 70s, they'll praise it, they'll celebrate it. The difference is over on Xbox is they don't then class it as an internal failure, much like Sony have. Essentially because Days Gone didn't get the critical acclaim that the execs wanted is the reason, regardless of how many sales, it didn't get a sequel. It had nothing to do with its sales figures. It was just because it was rated like 78 as opposed to like mid 80s, high 80s, like the rest of the Sony catalog. It was simply down to that, and I think keeping the emphasis on that is only restricting their own portfolio. And I think that's something Sony and PlayStation going forward for their own competition benefit need to pull back on. You need to stop having this mega high ceiling for every game needs to achieve absolute market dominance and critical acclaim across the board in order to be classed as a success. Because then you're breeding the wrong attitude. You're breeding, in terms of developers, they know if their game doesn't hit a certain critical acclaim, they've got absolutely no chance of getting another contract through unless they're essentially told to develop something by Sony. And we know with Days Gone's developers, Sony Bend, they've essentially been giving a game to create for the next one, which is absurd. They wanted to make Days Gone 2. They pitched it and they were denied. So they were told to do another project. Developers shouldn't have that, and that is again anti-competitive in my eyes. That is a form of competition in their own studios where they feel like they can't create what they want to create because they will not get the backing unless they've achieved this beyond Like it's ridiculous to expect every studio you have under your portfolio to be critically acclaimed. Xbox don't have that. Let's face it. Like we've got maybe 2 or 3 studios out of the current 17, 18, 23 studios they've got at the minute that are actually what we would class as being critically acclaimed. Sony, all of their studios are pretty much critically acclaimed. Sony Santa Monica, Insomnia, Naughty Dog, like their big AAA studios are all critically acclaimed.
Yeah.
Like Microsoft don't have that approach. They just like create experiences for everybody, no matter how big it is or how small it is. Just make good games.
Yeah. This I mean this leads to an entirely different conversation to be had. Like obviously in the end the results matter. Sony has put out consistently quality games,
Yeah,
which is like the biggest weakness of Xbox, consistency. So yeah, I mean at the end it will show what is the better approach. Like we should have this conversation in like 5 years, yeah, when we
yeah,
see can Xbox keep up the consistency of quality games with their current approach. To me, definitely this sounds the way to go with, because people just bring their best work when they are fully behind what they do. If we just talked to Joe, solo developer, passionate to the bone about his project, and he'll do everything he can to make this the best game possible.
yeah,
If you tell a guy like this, you have to do this or that, it's not going to be the same work. It's just
yeah,
not. So, yeah, but flip side is, yeah, the results speak for themselves, and and Sony has put out quality games, and they do that, and we're all looking forward to God of War in November, and yeah,
I mean,
um,
it's like I say, it's not to say that obviously, as you've said, Sony's rightfully
yeah,
all of their titles are critically acclaimed, and there's a reason for it. If you look at them, if you play them, if you've seen them, you can see quality. They all reek quality. Microsoft, on the other hand, are yes, of course they want to have the best titles known to man, but that isn't their biggest concern. They're just like, oh yeah, like we of course we're going to celebrate if like Forza Horizon, as always, is in the 90s on Metacritic. Of course we're going to celebrate that and have and shout from the rooftops that it's critically acclaimed and the best racer kind of on the market. But they're also going to celebrate the little ones that don't hit those same heights. Like that's where Microsoft exceed, in my opinion, is the fact that they celebrate all developers for all of their achievements, whether it's releasing their first game, whether it's releasing their first indie title, whether it's a
yeah,
small, little, medium, large, whether it's critically acclaimed or whether it's in the 70s, they'll celebrate everything to lift everybody up. Sony don't do that. They only lift up the ones that do well. And if they don't do well, you never hear from them again.
exactly. Yeah, I fully agree there, man. Listen, good talk, but there are a couple of other things I wanna
Yes.
briefly talk with you about. Halo Infinite. Last week we had the announcement Bonnie Ross is leaving. Statement was put out. It's because of family issues. She actually wanted to leave after the launch of season 3, but something happened with the family. Now we've learned that actually, well, we don't know, and we wish her family health issues all the best. We've learned that, yeah, well, her leaving wasn't as voluntarily as it looked initially. Apparently, she was gonna let go. The final straw, or how do you say that in English? What's a good phrasing?
Yeah,
The
I think
tip of
it
the
was the final
iceberg.
straw, yeah.
Yeah, is or was the delay of season 3, and also the head of the engine, the slip space engine, left 343. So obviously they're gonna do some doing some restructuring there. And I briefly want to hear your thoughts, man, on this. What do you think?
Yeah. So
Good.
overall, of course, I hope everybody in the Ross family is okay. Hope everything goes well for them. Of course, you never wish ill health on anybody, regardless of the situation, whether or not the game's going well or not. You don't wish ill health on anybody or their family.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed, everything is okay, and that resolves soon, and health's back to normal sooner rather than later. But on a purely professional level, and people have to kind of disconnect the two for a moment. On a purely professional level, the game has not performed, and nor has it lived up to the rightful expectations of being the major franchise that started Xbox. At the end of the day, this is the poster game that actually started the entire company. If it wasn't for Halo in the first place, with Bungie coming to Xbox and getting that game launched with the console, Xbox wouldn't be where it was today. So
Absolutely.
to see the state of the game now, and we have to be frank, we're not saying the game plays terrible, because it doesn't. It is probably one of the best Halo from a gameplay perspective. It plays probably the best than any Halo has ever played, which is great. That's one achievement, but there is no content. There is zero. The problem is there is no. You can't launch a live service Halo game with zero content and then continuously delay the content, and then
Like
expect
2
people to
maps in
just
the first year
be
for a
happy,
live
and then
service
2 maps
game.
in the second.
Yeah.
Like, we know there's only 2 maps coming over the next 6 months,
Yeah.
and then another maybe 2 at the tail end of next year. Like, that isn't enough. Like, and this
Absolutely.
is where execs, like Xbox execs, will have rightfully seen and just said, listen, like, this is, we know we said it's a 10-year plan, but 2 maps in 6 months, and then another 2 maps.
And they see how the community actually talks about Halo. Like,
Yeah.
it's literally their mascot is
Yeah.
Master Chief. Yeah, they printed the Chief on every box of Xbox.
They've got a
And
really successful TV show on HBO
yeah,
now.
and the most valuable thing you can have is an IP, is a brand name, and Halo has that, and they are jeopardizing that. And so, yeah, it only makes sense to pull the plug. I've seen also a lot of people defending it, and I've been very vocal about me wanting management change there. I always
Yep.
say we have to, on a professional level, we have to disconnect ourselves from, those, there are creative and great minds in those positions, but at the end they are managers. They get the management salary, and with that comes the management responsibility, and that is, it's their responsibility to make the product to the best it can be, and they
Yep.
obviously did not do that. And so I just need
And
to
then
briefly change the gameplay.
that's all right. I was going to say, on another perspective as well, from the other angle, the lead engineer for the engine leaving
Yeah.
as well. I would also say there's probably a good reason for that. The engine is notoriously difficult to work with, and we've heard that from developers. It isn't the easiest. It is literally an engine designed specifically for Halo, which means that
Yeah.
if you want to do anything that Halo has never done before, it's notoriously difficult to try and implement it. And then, coupled with the fact that they announced that split screen has been scrapped and are now only online co-op, is just bonkers. Like, the one thing Bonnie Ross said on stage is that, split screen, and she said that on stage, split screen has been a hallmark of our games from the start, and we want to ensure that that is going to be in going forward.
Dude. And then you look at the Digital Foundry video, how well it actually runs right now,
On split
and they
screen,
are
yeah.
just not releasing it. So honestly, yeah, I think we've touched on Halo many times. I want to say one thing.
Yeah.
I was always surprised about them going out like, we have this 10-year plan for Halo Infinite. And it was like, dude, look at that game. I mean, just from a visual perspective, if we talk 10 years, we are talking like next generation. And I mean, Xbox Series 2, PlayStation 6, this kind of generation. That's when we talk about 10 years, and not launch of that, but well into that.
Yeah.
And I was always of the thought this is not gonna happen. We're not gonna see Halo Infinite for 10 years. We will have eventually a Halo Infinite 2, just like we had with Destiny. That eventually just made a new game. And yeah, and now it looks to me like this is coming rather sooner than later. Eventually, they just probably gonna drop the live service approach, and then just make a new one.
The good
take the
news
L.
that came out the back of it was that they got Pierre Heinz over from the MCC team. Now, of course, Pierre
Yeah.
Heinz was responsible for getting MCC to where it is now, which is essentially where it should have been at launch. So if there's a guy that has got experience at resolving a problem that shouldn't have been there in the first place and making it great, which if you play MCC now, it has got an abundance of content. It
Yes.
runs flawlessly. It's a brilliant, true
It's a
collection
fan
of the
service.
masterpiece
It
games.
is, yeah.
It wouldn't have been that state if it wasn't for Pierre Heinz and his direction. So my confidence in this getting restored has increased slightly now he's in charge, because he has experience on resolving content issues and performance issues. So fingers crossed that change. And of course, the one thing we did notice from Sarah Bond leaving, not Sarah Bond, Bonnie Ross. I keep
Bonnie
getting
Ross,
them
yeah.
wrong way around. Sarah Bond's still fine. She's good. No, Bonnie
Yeah.
Ross leaving was that her role was split into 3 roles upon her leaving. Which is the only thing that I would say shows how much I don't know whether or not it was voluntarily or involuntarily, how many roles she'd taken on. But upon her leaving, there were 3 roles essentially split off to. So you've got head of marketing, head of this guy, and then of course studio head, which is Pierre Heinz. So hopefully that leads into something getting done sooner rather than later. I said this the other month when they started unveiling Forge, and I said it again, but Forge looks like it could be the temporary savior for that game if they act on it correctly until the content starts coming. And I say act on it correctly because if you have a look at the maps that the Forge creators have said, have created, which are essentially all of the historical Halo maps in the new engine, which is phenomenal. That's exactly what people wanted. So they've created these from scratch, and they're ready to go. The Halo Infinite team have said we're going to put these into regular cycle, not just into Thingamabie. So if they're going to do that, that could resolve a temporary content issue until actual content comes out with new maps. But they have to act on it correctly, and that is the key thing.
It's a good question. I feel like this is only gonna be really temporarily spike player numbers. Like, I mean,
100%.
You will have a couple of diehard Halo fans go in once it launches and play a couple of rounds, and it's gonna be awesome, no doubt. But then to keep them in there and keep them engaged with the game when in parallel you have all the madness of 2023 coming at you.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. I just don't see it. And so I wonder if they're gonna take the high road and say, okay, Halo Infinite, our 10-year live service game, it wasn't it. Let's go back to the drawing board and we see you guys in 4 to 5 years. We're gonna come out with the next Halo. And that's when we get it right. And I feel like I would prefer that approach rather than them investing more and more and more resources trying to fix whatever is going wrong over there right now. Just take the time, go back to the drawing board, restructure the studio, and then be.
Well, it's not. I was going to say it's not only that as well. If you have like as an online shooter that is meant to be live service, if you've had a look at the store, and of course it's built on microtransactions, you've got to think about that. Even from a cosmetic perspective, the store is absolutely empty. And they keep asking people, "Oh, what would you add to? What would you like to see on the storefront?" I'm like, I'd like to see any content on the storefront. There is no skins. There is
There's
nothing. Like they
nothing.
put like a
Yeah,
skin in one skin every
it's
couple of days, but they don't have like an actual catalog of things you can go in and purchase. And for
it is crazy, man.
it's
It's
wild
crazy.
for a shooter like that. You have a look at Call of Duty, you have a look at Apex, you have a look at any shooter, and they've got reams upon
Man,
reams upon reams of
exactly. There
skins
are
you can
enough
buy.
blueprints out there where you can look how you do a live service game in
We've
2022.
we've said it before about Sea of Thieves. Look at all of
Yes.
the content.
Yeah. And they
It's
they could
mad.
have learned from that for the launch. But man, I didn't want to spend that much time
Yeah.
actually on it because I kept a couple of other things before we move to the community questions.
Yes.
And one is being Splinter Cell. We had some
Yeah.
Splinter Cell news today.
Yeah.
So I have honestly, I'm not sure how to feel about this. So for those who haven't heard it, we all know the Splinter Cell, the first one is gonna get a remake from Ubisoft, and we haven't really seen much of the game. But today we learned that the game will update the game story for modern audience. So the upcoming Splinter Cell remake will include a rewritten story in order to appeal to a new generation of players. That's what Ubisoft announced. Man, what do you think? I've honestly, I'm not sure if any remake has ever done something like that. I know you could bring up Final Fantasy VII. It was like kind of a rewrite of the story, but it was like they didn't change the core story. They just changed, like,
Expanded on it.
expanded a little bit on it to make it not one game but two or three. But it's really not rewritten per se.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if this has ever been done. Like
It now sounds more like a reboot than a remake.
exactly.
Um, so yeah, it's the one person I thought of straight away when I read that was Sham.
That's a good
Because
one.
he's like, please don't mess it up, please don't mess it up, please don't mess it up. And now I'm reading it and I'm thinking, oh no, don't rewrite it. Just leave the story and just remake the game, but leave the story alone. If it does well, then write your own story and worry about that on the next one. Just make a remake of the game.
Yeah,
So
I
now
agree.
where I wasn't concerned, I am now concerned. I'm like, oh no, please don't mess with the original.
Right there with you. Right there with you. It's I mean, if you I don't know exactly what they mean by that. And they didn't specify it, but yeah, please, if we all wanted a Splinter Cell new game. Yeah, now the only thing we get is a remake of one of the all-time greats, and they are now messing with it. So yeah, we shall see. We shall see. Xbox got some major platform changes this week. And it was really weird because it was kind of like stealth dropped. It's nobody talked about it. Nobody there were basically zero articles. The only one I found was from a good friend of the show, Jess Corden. Shout out to him over at Windows Central. But other than that, nobody picked up on this. Xbox has released DRM changes. The community had a massive outcry, if you remember, like the big outage of Xbox Live in what was it, February or March, or something, where Xbox Live went down in certain regions for multiple days and people weren't able to access their games. A lot of articles were written about that. Yeah. And how they still haven't fixed their DRM system, and now they actually do. They have changed their DRM system. They have You can now play your own games offline. So when you own a game and you've signed your account into an Xbox, you can actually play it offline without the console needing to sign into Xbox Live. So, what do you think, man? Why is it that nobody talks about this? And because I feel like this is massive. This is a
Yeah,
fundamental thing to the Xbox platform that a lot of people complained for years. They've changed and fixed it.
yeah, it's huge actually, and it's as if they didn't want to make a big deal out of it.
Hmm.
Which is
Yeah,
weird
it kind of feels
because
like
one of
that.
the things that, like, if you have a look, remember that page that was all over Twitter? I had to get rid of them eventually because they just harped on about it every day, and I was like, it isn't as big a deal. I understand why people want it. Of course, any digital customers, it doesn't affect you whatsoever. Like, this change makes no difference to any digital customer because, of course, your digital games are always going to have DRM. This specifically involves physical owners. So if you've got a Series X, for instance, then of course
Yeah.
this is going to affect you and your physical games library. But if you've got any physical games that you've played previously that you want to play on the console, and of course previously, essentially, if you didn't have online, you couldn't play them because it would try to do a
Yeah.
DRM. Now, they've said for the vast majority, of course, not all of them yet. They might have a few issues to iron out,
Yeah.
but the vast majority of games won't DRM check now, which goes into then the essentially the collectors. Anyone who is a collector and wants to retain the use of their games well beyond the life cycle of the console, etc. They've removed the issues surrounding DRM checks on physical copies, which is awesome. For the vast majority, of course, online games will require DRM. The likes of Elder Scrolls Online or Fortnite or something. Of course, like if you've got a physical disc for them, it will have to have an online segment. So it will have DRM checks. But any offline games, any single player games like your Tomb Raiders from previous generations or Sunset Overdrive or something like that, DRM checks are normal. For the most part, it's a massive deal, massive, because again, it's for people who really wanted to preserve previous generations or preserve games, etc. This is a win for them, a massive win for them.
I feel like it's also a massive win for every other game. So, like, I really, when I go back to 2013, when the first time this conversation came up, I actually am probably one of the few people that thought like this was a good idea.
Yeah,
Just wasn't the time yet, because if you will look like 6-7 years later, we have actually everything that they announced with the Xbox One, the original plans in terms of digital distribution and stuff, just without the TV stuff. But I have no problem with my devices being online all the time. Every device, all my devices is online
yeah,
all the time. But the thing is, these outages, these service outages, is really the thing to consider here. And
yeah,
I, uh, I was affected by this as well, and it really sucked. For I couldn't play certain games for like 2 days. I own them. I paid money for them, and gaming is my recreational activity of choice. Yeah. So it just sucks when you can't play it just because Xbox Live is offline. So yeah, I feel like this is a big deal, and I know others have even more issues where they have unstable internet availability, where Xbox Live doesn't run as stable as it does here in Germany. So yeah, and
even the little things you've got to think of as well. Like if someone's moving house, for instance, and the network's
yeah,
not going to be on for a week or something.
exactly. I've had that problem. I changed internet providers, and I was offline in my house for a month. All
Oof.
I had was mobile. Uh, there
Oh,
was
I
like,
could not imagine that.
yeah, it was like 4 years ago, and all I had was mobile, so you could do it the hotspots, but at that time we had hard data limits here in Germany. Like I think it was, I don't remember exactly, but I think like 2 gigs or so a month of data.
Right.
So screw that, you weren't able to game or update
Yeah.
or do anything on the console, honestly. So no, it's a good thing. I applaud Microsoft for changing that, listening and taking the feedback. I just wonder why no one talks about it. It's just
Yeah,
so weird.
it's weird. It's like such a eh. Yeah, we removed DRM. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
like really not making a big deal out of it. It's just as if it's just another update.
yeah,
It's a big
exactly.
update, but I think they're not taking the plaudits on it. But at the same time, I think they also don't. And you've got to think from devil's advocate as well. They don't want to make a big deal out of it because people will be like, "Well, you should have done this ages ago anyway." So I think that maybe he's playing devil's
That
advocate
could
and
be.
just went,
Yeah, yeah,
just
true.
like just release it, not make a big deal out of it, even though we know it's a big thing. Because people, if we do shout about it from the rooftops, people are going to say,
We,
"Well, you should have done that in the first place."
yeah, yeah.
So
That could
yeah,
be. That
yeah.
could be. Yeah, man. Good stuff here. Good stuff here. A couple of other things happened in gaming. I think, but we are already 2 hours into the show, so I want to just briefly touch upon the GeForce RTX 40 series was announced this week. And I
Yes,
know most of the people here in chat are probably console gamers. So am I. I'm mainly a console gamer. But it's still interesting to look at what is happening in technology and what's going on PC. And
yeah.
some obviously play also on PC. So I also want to discuss it here. So, did you have a chance to look at the series card, 40 cards?
I did, yeah, I did, and I've again, I've ranted about it, and I will continue to rant about these things till the cows come home. I feel the card iterations now are at a stage where they need to be pushing them out further,
Mm,
between their releases. Even Joe, I think it was, I don't know whether or not this was on the show before it, but I think it was before it in the green room. He mentioned the Series 40 cards, and he
yeah,
said exactly what I've been saying. Developers are not getting the most out of the current cards, let alone the new cards. They're not even close to reaching the potential on the 30 series yet. So
yeah.
to release these now, which are 2 to 4 times better than the previous ones, yes, that's great. Fantastic that it's 2 to 4 times better and more powerful. But if we're not using
Yeah.
the cards that we've already got to their potential, what's
Yeah,
the point?
exactly. And it's a good point to be had. I mean, I'm never pro holding technology back. When the technology is available, bring it out. That's what's pushing technology forwards. I like that. But I get your point.
Yeah.
I mean, games
I think
are developed.
what we have to think of as well, specifically if you have a look at the way both AMD and Nvidia cards have been on release of just this console generation as well, is that some of the tools for these cards have not been available at launch and they've been months later. So
Yeah.
why don't they take a step back, get all of the tools, all of the additional things like FSR2 and DLSS2 and all of these fancy other tools and equipment you can use these cards absolutely ready. So then when they do launch, everything is good to go and they don't have this
Well,
massive
to be
delay.
fair, Nvidia didn't have the same issues like AMD had. I feel like the tool thing was mainly an AMD thing. Nvidia, they launched with the 30 series DLSS 2, and it ran day one with great support of games. And uh, so I feel
But
like
then you
that.
have a look at the likes of ray tracing, etc., which took several iterations to
Yeah,
get ready.
true. True, and that's the thing. That is a perfect example for market adoption. I mean, if we look, that still like 80% plus of the Steam players play on real small laptops, no GeForce RTX cards. So
I mean,
there's
even
really no.
not that long ago, the vast majority of Steam users were still on 1060s or lower.
Yes, exactly. And so it's to me, it's not really surprising that technologies like ray tracing and takes so long to adopt and optimize. Like we always say, like ray tracing is so expensive in terms of computational resources right now. Yes, it is because it is a niche technology,
Yep.
and that's actually why I was so excited when the current gen consoles launched. Because with that hardware that is capable of supporting hardware accelerated ray tracing is now a mass consumer product that will grant developers bigger budgets to develop these kind of algorithms and stuff and optimize them. So I feel like that's the thing here with ray tracing getting now to a point where it's more or less standard, and I feel like that we will see a lot more of ray tracing and its capabilities. Forza Motorsport is a great example at 60 FPS ray tracing in game on track. So
Yeah.
um yeah, other than that, I was really surprised about two things, Dutch. The first
Yeah.
is Nvidia is getting kind of confusing with their card lines, because now we used to have like 1060, a 1070, 1080, and you knew exactly what you got. Now we have multiple versions of the 4080, with one with 12 gigabytes, one with 16 gigabytes, and we have the version with the 16 gigabytes, but with a slower a smaller bandwidth, and so
Yeah.
on. And so average Joe goes into the PC shop and wants to buy this shiny new graphics card because he wants to play Fortnite on his 4080, and he doesn't know what he's getting. I've I've seen a couple of people actually complain about that, and I'm fully with them. It's weird to me, like, why make these different iterations? The
Yeah.
other thing is we see DLSS 3, and DLSS 3
Exclusive to
looks,
40 cards.
yes, exclusive to 40 cards. Well, they said in theory it can run on the 30 cards, but they're not sure if they're gonna do the work and bring it to the 30 cards yet. So not gonna happen, if you ask me. Anyway, DLSS 3 looks absolutely amazing, and I feel like this is one of the things that when we talk about console gaming now, and we are getting into that phase where we, well, in 1 or 2 years we will see the enhanced models, and I am 100% sure we will see enhanced models this gen. And if I see how far AI based upscaling technologies have gotten with DLSS 3, I wonder if AMD will adopt to that, because it's there is a significant. I know FSR is a thing, and FSR is a great thing to be have, but it's just not the same. It just isn't. Nvidia took it to the next level, and we also have seen the general performance increase, like 2.5 times compared to the 30 series on certain cards. This is insane where we are from a computational level here. And I know we always talk about it. Even the current gen games haven't utilized all the tools and all the power available just yet. But when I
Yeah.
look at where we already are right now, the RTX 40 series coming this year, we've seen the Zen 4 CPUs. Yeah, just to a reminder, we have Zen 2 CPUs in our consoles, are coming this year, and their performance, it's insane. The delta that we already have 2 years into the generation, I don't see that we get this gen like another 8 years before we get a hardware upgrade. We will see these iterations, these enhanced consoles again. I've no doubt. These are the things I took away from this RTX 40 reveal. I'm not gonna upgrade. I have a 3080. I built my PC last year, and I
Yeah.
expect my 3080 to be good enough to run games at 4K and 60 FPS for another couple of years. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's
yeah,
the only other news relating to Nvidia over the last couple of weeks, which a lot of people might have missed, was EVGA, which is one of the companies that worked with them to make alternate models or enhanced models, performance boosted versions of their graphics cards, have severed ties with Nvidia, following the completion essentially of all of their 30 series product lines,
yeah.
due to unfair, or should we say, bad treatment from Nvidia on EVGA, which is massive for them. That's a huge deal because EVGA were probably one of the larger resellers and enhancers of their cards. So yeah, it's crazy to see that happen. So there's obviously something. There's no doubt Nvidia create great graphics cards, but EVGA were the vast majority of the market. From what I noticed, a lot of people preferred the EVGA cards because they were boosted. They get extra performance out of them. They were higher clocks. They were done professionally. So it's going to be weird to see how this 40.
It's going to be an interesting market, and Intel is pushing into that market, and you see, on the console side of things these days, there's really no other option for Sony or Microsoft to go with rather than AMD, because they are the only ones that offer these highly integrated APUs where you combine CPU and GPU on the same clock. The thing is, I know Nintendo did it differently. And see where it's gotten us in terms of hardware power. So yeah, there's at the moment really no other option because Nvidia does not offer CPUs. You can't get an APU from like you can from AMD. Now, with Intel pushing heavily into the GPU market, I know they have had these like onboard GPUs for years now. They've announced their state-of-the-art GPU line. They've shown XeSS, which is their version of DLSS, and it is magnificent. It's a similar technology. It's also using dedicated tensor cores. They just call it differently. But it's the same technology. They use tensors to hardware accelerate the AI that is used for the upscaling. So they are pushing into the competitive market with the RTX series of Nvidia, and they have the CPUs. So I truly wonder if Sony or Microsoft are currently heavily looking into this. Is there an option to get like a shift from AMD towards Intel, an Intel-based GPU and APU, in order to get actually the technology of hardware accelerated AI upscaling? So yeah, we shall see. But that's something that is stuck in my mind. Like we have now at least the potential to have competition on the APU side of things.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
We shall see. Time will tell.
We shall see. Time will tell. And I would be surprised if we didn't hear anything about enhanced consoles by the end of next year, honestly.
Yeah, definitely.
So, we shall see. We shall see. All right. But man, a little over 2 hours already, and I want to read quickly a couple of community questions. All right, there we go. I don't want to keep everyone too long, but we've got a couple of good ones, like we always do. Waller Weasel writes in and asks, "Nothing better than a true bromance. What do you guys like most about your co-host?"
Oh, we're pretty much both on the same wavelength. We're very not only technically minded, but we do a lot of research, have a lot of in-depth discussions. I think it's just both on the same kind of wavelength when we're talking about discussions, which is why we can have these good back and forths. Personally, I think it's because we're both like to educate ourselves correctly on everything we speak about. And be able to have educated discussions. So I think that's the best thing I think about having Boxy as a co-host, is I know I'm going to have the same level discussion.
Yeah, true. That's definitely something. I mean, I have to say I can always rely on that. She's not just for coming here, but like I got a question, I got something, I can always ask him. We've just became good friends over the years now, and I can always rely to get his honest opinion. I know when I get his opinion, I get what he truly thinks. You don't get that always when you work with other creators. Sometimes you have the feeling like, okay, you attend to your audience, and I don't get that feeling from Dutch. So, yeah, he's an honest guy, someone very reliable, and just love talking to him, and so I'm truly honored to have him as a co-host here. Um, yeah,
Thank
good
you.
question, Waller Weasel. Bromance, true bromance here. Siki writes in. He actually writes in 2 questions. Rockstar usually releases a teaser a couple of years ahead of release, but since GTA 6 leaked, do you think the game announcement and release will have a small window?
Nah. I don't think this has affected Rockstar in the slightest in the end. Originally, I thought that they would have delayed it, but judging by their statement, it
Yes,
hasn't made an absolute dent into what they're planning on doing with that game. So hats off to Rockstar for holding steady. But
absolutely.
no, I think it's still going to be this. You're still going to be years away from seeing it. I still say 26 maybe, 2026 when the game comes out.
I don't know, 26 sounds like really far along, especially given that GTA 5 was a
It
2030
does,
title.
but you have a think on how long it takes them to release a game between the releases of other games. So
Well, but still, even if we look at Red Dead Redemption 2, which came out, I want to say 2018.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so
4 years ago.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, could be 26. 26. I feel like we are more talking here 24, 25 in that region. But yeah, it's still pretty far along. We will be playing a lot of other games before we will play that.
Yeah,
But I agree. I don't think that it's gonna. It did affect them eventually in the development plan or marketing plan. Um, so yeah.
if
Um,
anything, it's helped them because it's got people talking about it, despite them not actually doing any advertising themselves.
oh yeah,
Yes, it leaked, but it gave like a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's definitely set in Vice City now," so everyone knows it's set in Vice City, so they're hyped that
yeah,
it's in Vice City again. And then they know that there's 2 characters there now, so they know it's about these 2 characters. But then you've also seen that the character models are also much better than they were in GTA 5, so you know they've improved the character models. You've had a look at some of the
again,
weapons
it
that they've
was
got, and
pre-alpha
that's improved.
footage, super early.
Yeah.
I don't think it's in any way, shape, or form representative of in
Nope.
how the game is gonna look.
Nope.
Not even close.
No.
And I think that might be the only thing where this leak really has affected them. Is like they're gonna put an extra focus on polishing up graphics before they show something official. So
Yeah.
that when they show it, it's gonna be mind blowing, like
And you have to all you have
close
to
to
do is just take
photorealism, mind blowing.
yeah. I was gonna
Yeah,
say you just have to take Red Dead Redemption as an example of what they can achieve when they put their graphical fidelity to the forefront. Like that is
exactly.
still Red Dead Redemption 2 is still one of the most impressive games to look at, bar none, when it comes to volumetric lighting, fog, when it comes to the deformation of the soil and the snow and everything that went into the
Everything.
weather effects.
Yeah.
It's just phenomenal
And that was under the
game.
limitation of the last gen
Yeah.
CPUs. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree. I agree, man. Um, Bavari90 writes in, not to bash 343, but just for fun. Which Xbox studio could make a Halo game that makes everyone of the community happy, in your opinion? I have my pick, but want to hear yours first?
No, I'll go for yours first. I'm still
All
thinking
right,
on this one.
I'm saying it tech. Um, it software is just an amazing studio that knows how to do shooters. They have made over the years tremendous single player and multiplayer shooters. Quake, super fast paced arena based shooter. We have Doom. Amazing shooting mechanics, amazing graphics. If you take it away from 343, give it to it, make it in its engine, and it's gonna be mind blowing.
I would probably I was just thinking through all the studios there, and I was thinking maybe he's one of the Call of Duty guys, but
Oh,
push comes to shove, I think id Tech does take the crown. More thinking along the lines of Quake than I am Doom. I think the Quake, especially when you think of the likes of Quake Arena and things like
Quake
that.
Arena.
And obviously, Halo is in some respects, specifically online, an arena shooter, as it were. It's very small maps, 2v2s or 4v4s. Yes, you've got big team battles, etc. And of course, you can quite easily do big team battle maps as well using that same engine. Yeah, I would probably say it would be id Tech's first choice. If id Tech couldn't, for some apparent reason, then it would be one of the Call of Duty devs. Wouldn't be Activision Direct. I've forgotten the other studio that does it. One of the sub studios.
Yeah, like Raven or Sledgehammer.
So yeah, maybe Sledgehammer. If it push comes to shove, as the runner up, should we say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fun to speculate. Machine Games comes up. Yeah, well, they've done fantastic single player shooters. Xbox has one thing for sure: options. They have options now. Which tech to use, which studios to let run which IP. But I don't think that they're gonna take away 343 from Halo. I think they will stick with that studio. They are gonna significantly going to restructure it. All right, man. But that's it for today. Great conversations. We had Joe on, lead developer, solo developer of Song of Iron, and the recently announced Song of Iron 2. That was about the first hour of the show. If you later want to go back, listen to it. It's gonna be. It was a fantastic chat we had with Joe, and then Dutch. It's always a blast to chat with you. So thanks for coming on here today, and thanks everyone in chat for tuning up. Being active in chat, and of course a special thanks to all the super chats. Really helps a lot to hear the support. Having big plans with the channel by the end of the year, so that support really helps there. And I'm also trying to get back to doing more edited videos. Just work has been crazy lately, so yeah, but I'm definitely want to go back to doing more edited videos again. So, but as of right now, I want to say again a big thank you, Dutch. Let everyone know what you've come up in the next couple of days.
Yeah, certainly. So, of course, you can find me everywhere at Wondering Dutch, YouTube at Wondering Dutch. On Sunday, of course, we've got the weekend edition of the Midweek Mix-Up with myself and General C. And next week, of course, with ourselves, Boxenberger, myself, and the rest of the crew, we have the founder and one of the lead developers, of course, of Metal Hellsinger, David Goldthorpe, on the show as well to talk about Metal Hellsinger, its creation.
That's
there's
gonna
a
be
lot
awesome.
of questions I want to ask about on how they got in contact with all of these awesome metal artists and worked with them in the first place. So that's going to be awesome. And in the coming weeks as well, we're going to have and this is a kind of first for World of Gaming to kind of shout this out because I haven't spoken to anybody about it, but back in touch with Delilah Studios, who will be coming on to discuss their awesome announcement, of course, the other week that they've got their first Disney IP doing Disney Illusion Land on the Nintendo Switch and PC. Of course, discussing that and what that means for them. Of course, Delilah infamously We're one of the studios that, of course, brought back the Battletoads IP out of its depths. Did a great job with it as well. So really hyped for them as a studio. Great to kind of ask them about that as well. So another 2 dev interviews coming up from us. So that's going to be awesome.
Absolutely. And in case someone doesn't follow you, just click in the description. You can find the link to the YouTube channel, Twitter, and so on. Everything there. Same goes, of course, again for Song of Iron. It's all there at your convenience. Guys, I want to say again a big thank you for tuning in here today. I had a blast. It was a fantastic show. And I see you guys next week. And don't forget to game on.